Now, before we can get into the theory, I'm going to provide a synopsis so that we can actually have a better understanding about the story. And since the book has literally been out for a day at this point, this is your spoiler warning, because I'm nice. This theory, however, does currently only involve friendly faces and neither of the other two stories or the epilogue. So if you want to read it and then come back, go right ahead. It's okay. Your clicking on this already counts as a view. Okay, now that all the sissies are out of here, let's talk Fazbear Frights. Going by the synopsis on the wiki so that this information can be available to anyone and everyone even after you watch this video. Quote, Edward drops his bowl of cereal while he was distracted. His mother warns him to pay attention to his surroundings to avoid accidents. This dozing off also causes Edward to embarrass himself in science class when he pours pepper onto a magnet, which sprays the pepper everywhere and gets into the student's eyes. On the bus ride home, Edward laments to his friend Jack on how much he messes up, and how much he has to apologize for his mistakes. As the two get off the bus and walk home, Edward and Jack discover an abandoned kitten, which they named Faraday, after the famous scientist Michael Faraday. They begin teaching the cat tricks and formed a strong bond with it as the months go by. One day though, Faraday follows a butterfly onto the street. Jack chases it to try to keep him safe, but they both get hit by a truck and die. Having witnessed the accident, Edward is understandably traumatized and mourns their deaths, especially since they were his only two friends. While watching TV, an advertisement by Fazbear Entertainment abruptly appears, advertising their Fazbear Friendly Faces service. It's a program that recreates a lost pet by using the pet's DNA to create its face and then adds it to an animatronic body, creating a new companion in their image. Edward pays for the expensive service and took some hair from Faraday's corpse, accidentally taking some of Jack's hair as well. After a few weeks, a package from Fazbear Entertainment is sent to Edward's house, appearing in front of his doorstep on a stormy night. He is horrified by the cat inside, because it has Jack's face on it. The cat, called the Friendly Face, kept smiling at Edward, not moving at all. He forces the cat back into the box and then buries it in the backyard. Because, you know, that's gonna work. Despite being buried, the cat doesn't stop smiling. During the night, he hears sounds throughout the house, the hallway, the living room, his bedroom, and even from behind him, but Edward can't seem to find anything. He eventually heads back to bed, until the cat, still covered in mud, appears on his bed. Typical cats, man. His mother came in when she heard his screams, but the cat had disappeared. Months pass, and Edward sees the Friendly Face constantly stalking him. However, as soon as he sees it, it disappears. He almost goes insane as he started to hear ticking and chittering everywhere. As he is walking home one day, he finds his Friendly Face on the street. It chases Edward into the forest and tries to curl around his ankles. As he runs into the woods, though, he gets hit by a truck and dies from bleeding out. The Friendly Face then waits by Edward's limp, dead body, wanting him to get up so they can play some more. End quote. First of all, I just want to say that pepper thing, absolutely genius. I'm doing that later. Like, I'm going back to college specifically so I can do that. Anyway, with this we can instantly establish our main characters, Edward, Jack, and the cat known as Faraday. There are a couple of things that stick out to me because of this. One, that Jack and Evan share the same amount of letters, which isn't much on its own, and I mean, like, Evan isn't even a confirmed name, but it's still something. And Edward and Jack are also two names that I've seen people call Crying Child in the comments on multiple occasions. This story also revolves around someone's love that ends up making a robotic version of a loved one, even if accidental. That's also in a way what many people believe happened to Crying Child, that he became an animatronic by possessing either Fredbear or Golden Freddy, which would be a combination of animal and animatronic, even if it's not to this literal an extent. The story also proves that it's still canon for animatronics to be created with the intent of bringing back a loved one, similar to what we see happen with Henry and Charlie Emily in the original novel trilogy. And considering how Scott said these books would help fill in some blanks from the past, it's worth taking note of since this proves that animatronics can be created in people's images, and it's drawing attention to that point like it's still important. And even if it was meant to be a cat, it still has part of Jack inside, like how a robot would still have the human still inside of them even if it's in a coded form. Plus, I mean, like, the cat who Edward intended on bringing back was named Faraday, after the famous scientist Michael Faraday. And I think we all know who the most famous Michael on this channel is. Yes, the older brother, who I keep saying is a robot. And here we are, with a robot cat whose name just so happens to be based off of Michael. Coincidence? I think not! Especially when this robot who's named after a Michael has someone else inside them. Someone whose name has 4 letters. Like how I've been suggesting that Michael is a robot version of Crying Child who's implanted with different memories and told that he killed his brother so that he wouldn't return to Fazbear restaurants. Or at the very least, Crying Child ends up possessing Michael after he dies in the hospital, since that would also make more sense and explain the hallucinations and whatever else we see. Now, there is definitely more to this theory that I can investigate. However, I haven't actually received my book in the mail yet. I mean, like, I pre-ordered it on Amazon, and hopefully it will be here soon. But when it does, I assure you that I will make a follow-up or an update to this theory, whether it helps my case or ruins it. But I have a feeling that there is certainly more to this story than meets the eye. Or I guess meets the mind, since, you know, you're not really, like, you're reading it, so you're not, like, seeing it like you would like a game or a movie. But I guess you also typically read with your eyes. But then again, I don't know if this was made in Braille. Anyway, you know what I mean. First of all, the game. Let's take a look at the actual gameplay first, as explained to us by the Freddy Files Updated Edition, so that we know there's no misinterpretation or bias in my script. Quote, during the 4th lap of Midnight Motorist, hit other cars to slow down, then drive across the bottom lane. Eventually, you'll see there is an opening at the bottom of the screen that you can enter. You'll be led to another screen, where it's raining, and you're just one purple car driving along a winding road. As you drive to the U-shaped bend in the road, crash your car into the dark clearing in the trees. You can get out, you'll find that your character is yellow, not purple, and walk to an open spot in the trees. In the upper left corner, there is an unmarked pile of dirt. Get back in your car and you'll reach a fork in the road where you can either go left or continue straight. If you turn left, you're brought to a parking lot where there's a restaurant called Junior's. There's a green man standing outside the restaurant. Park and get out of the car. As you approach the green man, he says, "Come on, you know you can't be here. Don't make this more difficult than it has to be." Nothing else happens. Get back in your car and then turn right. Keep driving until you reach a blue house. You can get out of your car and walk around the house. The sound of music fades away and is replaced with the sound of rain. The closer you get to your house, the more it zooms in on your character. Go to the front door and enter the house. The game falls silent. There's a person dressed in gray sitting in a chair in front of a TV. The gray person says, "Leave him alone tonight. He had a rough day." Go down the hall and knock on the door. You'll shout, "I told you not to close your door." Then, "This is my house. He can't ignore me like that." Then, "Open the door." And finally, "I'll find a way in from the outside." Leave the house and walk around the back. The window is broken and there are 2 sets of footprints, one human and one animatronic. Your character says he ran off to that place again. He'll be sorry when he gets back. And before we get into the breakdown, we've been having a bit of a theory week while I'm on vacation. But if you want more videos deep diving into certain aspects of the FNAF series, be sure you let us know by telling us in the comments and hitting like and subscribing. It really helps us out. Okay, let's continue. Now for the breakdown. Now looking at that, there are a few things that jumped out to me. 1, the book points out that your character is yellow, not purple. There's an emphasis placed on this line thanks to the exclamation mark. The only one in the entire section about the game, to be exact. This must be an important detail to take note of, especially if it's emphasized. Another thing that really jumps out to me is the description of the other characters. Both the green man and the child hiding in his room are both described using male pronouns. Green man, leave him alone tonight. But the one in gray sitting in front of the TV is just described as a person. There's a person dressed in gray sitting in a chair in front of a TV. The gray person says, which seems awfully elusive and intentionally so. And finally, the last thing is the description of what we see outside the child's window. Now, it's almost impossible not to know about it at this point, but outside we do see 2 sets of footprints, one human and one not human. But thanks to the design of Glitch Trap's suit with 3 big toes, we thought that this could have been Glitch Trap's suit, making it impossible for this yellow guy to be William Afton like we first assumed. However, thanks to this book, we get confirmation that the other set of footprints is from an animatronic. Quote from the book, "There are 2 sets of footprints, one human and one animatronic." And since this is an official updated guidebook to the games, this has to be 100% canon. The other set of footprints is an animatronic, so not William's original suit. So what does this mean? Well, there are actually a few theories. Let's discuss them. The first and most prevalent theory is that the yellow man is William Afton. This was started thanks to the similarity of the car used in this game and the car William is shown driving in the Take Cake minigame from FNAF 2, and both scenes are raining. This was further supported by the fact that the secret portion of the Midnight Motorist game is called Later That Night, which seems to be pointing us towards this taking place after William killed Charlotte and take cake. This would also explain who the one in the chair is. It could be Michael, who is watching TV like he does at the end of Sister Location's Nights, but some have speculated that it could be the mother, which is supported by the lack of pronouns used for this person. But it could also be used for Michael if he was in fact a robot, since he wouldn't be a he, but I guess he also wouldn't be a person. And the one in the bedroom who was lured away could very well be Crying Child, who was brought to a Fazbear location by one of the animatronics. This is presumably what made William want to make him afraid of the animatronics. This might be why the brother ripped the head off the Foxy plush and started using it as a mask to scare Crying Child. It would also explain the logic of putting Crying Child in Fredbear's mouth. It was another scare tactic, but William didn't plan on the mouth closing, killing his son. The other theory suggests that perhaps this yellow man is not William Afton, but rather his business partner Henry. This is supported by the fact that he is just not purple, and the animatronic footprints outside the window. However, the major flaw with this theory is that Henry is shown to only have a daughter, not a son. So the actual gendering of the child basically ruins the whole idea that this is the Henry Emily household. Another possibility is that the yellow man is not Henry Emily at all, but is rather the father of one of the missing children's incident victims who was either captured by one of William's animatronics or by William himself in a costume. But thanks to the Freddy files, we know it's an animatronic. And thanks to the pile of dirt the book also pointed out that is also fairly close to the house, it was probably a twisted animatronic, since we know that the twisted ones bury themselves in the ground during the day only to dig their way back up at night. If this is true, then this could also connect the pizza party level in Night Terrors from Help Wanted, where the player starts out in a bedroom which looks slightly similar to the one from FNAF 4, but we know that that room is meant to be the Crying Child's bedroom since he was in a coma experiencing this dream while fighting for his life. However, the biggest point of contention in this minigame is the yellow guy, or aptly named Mustard Man thanks to the community and mostly MatPat. This is the one thread that gives us all the variables. If we know who the yellow guy is, then we know what's going on in this game. The yellow of the character could be a reference to the yellow spring bodysuit that Afton uses to kill kids, since we know that he just came off of killing Charlotte, and that could be what this is referencing. The color yellow on one hand stands for typically positive feelings, like happiness, positivity, clarity, optimism, or freshness, energy, and intellect, but it can also represent caution, sickness, jealousy, cowardice, and deceit. And this may also give us some ideas behind why this character is yellow. If it indeed is William after just killing Charlotte outside the Fazbear restaurant, that could be considered cowardly, especially since he moves on to killing inside the restaurant, or has before. He could have also deceived Charlotte with the bodysuit, but we know he isn't wearing it, thanks to the take cake minigame as well as the rain outside, which would have triggered the spring locks. This could also explain why Charlotte was outside. Maybe her father told her to stand in the rain if she could, so that if William came by he wouldn't be wearing his murder suit. If this is William, he could also just be happy about the fact that he killed Charlotte, because let's be honest, he'd be like that. The color yellow is also spontaneous and an unstable color. It is often associated with food and is highly used in children's products and marketing advertisements aimed at children. And with the color yellow and William sharing a demographic, it's highly possible that this was absolutely intentional. Too much yellow causes loss of focus and makes it hard to complete a task. Too little yellow causes feelings of isolation and fear, insecurity, and low self-esteem, which are typical among serial killers. A lack of yellow though can cause one to become rigid, cunning, possessive, or defensive, and all of those describe William Afton. So perhaps color theory is the way we should go when trying to determine who this mysterious Mustard Man is. Let's start off with some explanations. Who is Vanny? Vanny is the apparent primary antagonist of the next FNAF game Security Breach, which at the time of filming doesn't have a release date. Vanny, also known as the Reluctant Follower, was grabbed a hold of by Glitchtrap in some form and has now two consciousnesses in her head. Hers that googles the migration pattern of bees, and William's that googles how far can a human be tortured before passing out and how to induce compliance in human subjects, as we learned from FNAF AR emails, which seems to indicate that Vanny isn't entirely under his control. However, we don't know where she came from, only that she's most likely both Vanny and the security guard Vanessa. We also know that Vanny, when William is making her speak, has glitchy vocal cords somehow, and will fumble words like we see in the Security Breach trailers, particularly when she says it was only a glitch. So it's safe to say that when she is killing, or at least being aggressive or violent, she isn't in control of her body, and rather it's William. This is the second closest we actually get to interacting with William directly, since the closest we got was FNAF 3, since, you know, he was alive inside Springtrap, but now he's alive inside Vanny. Alive. We had a whole separate video on how he's he's not technically alive. Go check that out. Now, this all seems well and good, but how would we be Vanny? After all, there is no evidence to suggest it, right? Well, not necessarily. Technically, if you want to use that argument, we also have no evidence that we aren't Vanny. At first, I thought we were Gabriel, someone who shares a name with the child who goes on to possess Freddy, much like the Jeremy we hear about from Tape Girl. But now I am absolutely certain that we play as a woman named Vanessa who takes over playtesting after Tape Girl's company sends the game to another company, as we hear Tape Girl describe in her recordings. This must be the company that we work for just because it makes sense. As to who we are, that's where the theorizing comes in. There isn't much to go on in the main game since, well, most of it revolves around finding Glitch Trap, but at the end, when we successfully find all 16 tapes, we do end up merging with Glitch Trap, which does line up with what we think happened to Vanessa, so there's one point right there. There's also all the circumstantial evidence that supports this hypothesis, like Vanessa as we know her being a security guard, just like we play as in the VR game most of the time. The similarities between her story and the story we know about our character, the knowledge that we are not Tape Girl and neither is Vanny since she's working at a company handling the FNAF VR animatronics, etc. Where we can really find evidence to support this, and what made me solidly believe this theory, is in the mobile port of FNAF VR, of all places. Because due to size constraints, we were reduced to some of the mini-games from VR, with the addition of a secret one, only accessible via clicking or interacting with objects with glitching textures, but clearly intentional glitches. Tapping on these a lot and zooming in will eventually cause you to be brought back to the main home screen, and a monitor next to the main system will have a secret minigame called Princess Quest. I talked about this in a recent video, however I wanted to go more in depth here. Princess Quest is a special minigame from Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted exclusive to mobile ports. The minigame can be accessed from the Freddy Fazbear Virtual Experience main hub room, and occasionally a grid pattern will appear on objects at the prize counter. To unlock Princess Quest, the player must zoom in on one of these glitching objects. Afterwards, the screen will fade to black and fade back in to the level select with everything unlocked, along with Princess Quest shown on the right monitor, the little tiny one. The player starts out in a room with a door that they cannot open, and they have to light all 4 torches in the next room to make the actual door open in the first room. This is just to show you how to play the game, basically. The player will then end up in a room full of floating glitch trap heads that will attack them. After lighting the torches in that room, you can now go into the next room and get the key. And glitch trap blockers will block the door and attack the player if they get too close. Wonderful. This game basically serves as a way to get Glitch Trap into the game because, you know, they couldn't have him because it's a freaking mobile port. And throughout the entire minigame, only 16 torches are found that can be lit up. And this is possibly, but most definitely, a metaphor to the 16 tapes found in the original version of Help Wanted, showing how we as the player collected the tapes and then inadvertently summoned Glitch Trap in his physical form. And then, you know, he kind of melted our brains. If this is indeed the case, then that single minigame serves as an overview for the entirety of FNAF VR. Since after lighting the 16th, well, the games call them torches, but they're really braziers, but after lighting the 16th one, a Glitch Trap sprite will appear, saying his signature line of "I always come back" in coded text at the bottom, as well as saying "I always come back, let me out" if you take the sound that plays during that scene, double the speed, and reverse it, which just serves as confirmation that Glitch Trap is actually this character and just not some ripoff thrown in for fan service. But this is where the theory really comes through. If this Princess Quest minigame serves as an overview for all of FNAF VR, then that's confirmation right there that our player character in FNAF VR is female, since that's who we play as in this game, going around lighting torches or collecting cassette tapes and eventually accidentally reassembling Glitch Trap. With our character being female, and obviously not Tape Girl, we don't have many options left. We must be Vanny. However, this brings me to my next point. What if Glitch Trap is possessing multiple people, and not just us? Couldn't Vanny just be somewhere else and we're another unlucky victim? Well, this could be true, but I don't think it is. I don't think Glitch Trap can possess multiple people at once, and I think that Help Wanted has been telling us this from the get-go and we never noticed. After the final showdown, if you successfully follow Tape Girl's instructions, you lock yourself in your own mind. The Glitch Trap manifestation that appears turns into a green rabbit plush that spawns on the ground where he used to stand. This single moment indicates to us that we are now actually possessed. If we don't follow the instructions though, we end up merging with him on stage, but that's just simply in the game. That isn't in the real world. Yet if you're focused on trying to do the complicated process properly to actually fend him off, your mind is vulnerable. You aren't fighting off Glitch Trap, and instead you're trying to press things in the right order, which basically gives Glitch Trap an access tunnel into your psyche, thus being able to shut you away. Obviously this doesn't work forever, since Vanny seems to have no recollection of what Glitch Trap does, but nonetheless the answer was right in front of us the whole time. Once Glitch Trap actually gets into our mind, we can see that he can no longer manifest in the game and is replaced by something so that the game doesn't break, because you know, code. Glitch Trap cannot be in two places at once, therefore he cannot possess multiple people at once, meaning that the one he does possess, who ends up being us at the end of Help Wanted, must be Vanny, just based on, just by default. There's nobody else that it could be. It's literally impossible. It's just how it is what it is. That's the way the news goes. Now, having inconsistencies is understandable and it's to be expected. Anything that has this kind of lore and this amount of content is bound to have a couple flaws. Take How I Met Your Mother for example. They have Barney driving in multiple episodes, but then later have Ted teach Barney how to drive after some of those moments would have already happened. Or in Supernatural, when in season 2 Dean mentions never having been to the Grand Canyon, yet 6 seasons later Sam remembers a trip when they went there when he was 4. This was admitted to be a mistake on the writer's part, but discrepancies like that are to be expected when talking about a series as big as this. But the inconsistency I'd like to address here is the nightmare animatronics, and I've had an excellent idea that would explain away the whole kerfuffle with them. As we learn at the end of FNAF 4, Crying Child was in a coma for the entirety of the main FNAF 4 game after getting chomped by Fredbear, meaning that every animatronic we see in the main gameplay would be taking place inside of Crying Child's head. So all the nightmare animatronics along with the Jacko animatronics would be created in his mind. And since Crying Child dies at the end of the game, getting the plug pulled or just giving up on fighting, there wouldn't be any way for anyone else to know what these animatronics looked like. Yet they still appear in future games like Ultimate Custom Night and FNAF VR. So what gives? What's the deal? How could this be possible? And I have a satisfactory conclusion that is bound to make some of you mad. And isn't that the best kind? If we go back to a previous theory video entitled We Were Wrong About Golden Freddy on this channel, we can see that I proposed the idea that Crying Child is actually the one you should not have killed. Not many people seem to be happy with this idea in the comments section, but hey, that's alright, I'm a big kid now, I can take it. However, if Crying Child was the one you should not have killed, it would help explain the discrepancies with these animatronics in such an easy way. First, let's go over the evidence again as to how the Crying Child is the one you should not have killed. In room 1280 of Heracles Hospital, something evil is keeping a man alive. A man with gruesome burns all over his body and an iron will to live. The man in room 1280 is the third story of the 5th Fazbear Frights book Bunny Call. The story, written by Andrea Wagner, revolves around a man with, as the book summary described, horrific burns all over his body. His organs are exposed, his face is missing, he has burn marks everywhere. This man was taken off life support years prior to the story, yet somehow is still able to live. He's still alive. The story ends with this horrifically damaged man being taken to a Fazbear Entertainment distribution center where he promptly explodes violently. This story is obviously meant to represent, or very well be, William Afton, who did end up escaping the FNAF 6 fire, but was horribly damaged because of it. The story was meant to show us that William had a soul possessing him, the soul of a young boy with curly black hair, rosy cheeks, and an alligator mask. And the description of the young boy with curly black hair would also fit the Crying Child. This also proves to us that the one possessing William was a male and not a female, so it couldn't be Cassidy. This also explains why we were so confused about the lines discussing the one you should not have killed, since they all refer to him as a boy if it includes a gender-based pronoun. Example, I have seen him, the one you should not have killed.
I have seen him, the one you shouldn't have killed.
There is no reference to any form of female, which we thought made sense because Golden Freddy is a male character, but why would they be referring to a female spirit as the animatronic they inhabited? Also, how could Cassidy possess two things at the same time, especially when one of them is a human? When Crying Child died, there was also no animatronic around for him to possess. It would make more sense for him to possess William since he would have to be in the vicinity after signing the papers to let his son go. Everything lines up for Crying Child to really be the one you should not have killed, keeping his father alive after seeing all the horrific deeds he's committing in an effort to bring him back, or just because he's his father after all. He brainwashed Elizabeth, so why not brainwash Crying Child as well?
I am remade but not by you, by the one you should not have killed.
I am fully convinced that Crying Child was the one possessing his father and keeping him alive, since if that was the case, it explains the other appearances of the animatronics that only Crying Child would know about. Since Ultimate Custom Night also takes place in William's head, which can't be a coincidence given this series now. That's how the Nightmare animatronics were able to appear and torture William, and that's why the characters who mention the one you should not have killed, Mangle, Withered Chica, Nightmare Freddy, and Jacko Chica, all share some form of nightmare version or connection to FNAF 4. There are also multiple lines that refer to your situation, such as "this is how it feels."
This is how it feels, and you get to experience it over and over and over again. Forever. I will never let you leave.
Which could be referencing being hunted down by animatronics, but why would someone who was killed by William reference gameplay that another character has to deal with? Instead, I think it's a reference to your current situation, where you're in a coma and this is what it feels like. We also know that the sound disc was not to blame for the Nightmare animatronics, since Nightmare Freddy himself says that he was now given flesh.
I am given flesh to be your tormentor.
And the disc can seemingly only alter the appearance of something, meaning it would already need to have at least some form of flesh to alter. These are all hints about who is really possessing William, and it also explains how they're appearing in the next games. Since after waking up from his coma, William could have easily written descriptions down, or created them himself when he was possessing the hard drive that gets scanned to help make the animatronic AI in Help Wanted. Him seeing these animatronics in his coma thanks to his son's spirit is the reason these are in the game, because William brought them in with him. It's insane that it took me this long to figure out, but also I never saw this pointed out in any of the comments on these videos, so it's something that I'm sure a lot of people managed to piece together. It's an elegant solution that easily fits one of the most frustrating elements of the games into place. Now, however, I just need to figure out how Michael knew what Nightmare looked like, so he could draw it in the survival logbook. That's a mystery I'll never quite understand, really, since he would only be able to learn about it if William told him after he learned about them, but Michael burns in FNAF 6, so that should be impossible, because William doesn't learn about them until Ultimate Custom Night, which takes place after FNAF 6. And Crying Child couldn't have told his brother since he died in FNAF 4 after seeing these animatronics, so how could he know? Let me know your thoughts down below.